There was a wealth of information in Aurangzeb's recollections. It would take a lifetime to sift through it all. It was a lifetime's worth of memories. However, you found that by mentally focusing on one topic, you could call up specific information. What you learned was shocking. The gods, heroes, and even citizens of Auroria had stripped the land of its magic, its life force. They had used too much. The only thing sustaining the land was the gate to the garden. That other world was the source of all magic, and its magic was now keeping the dying land alive. If the gate was sealed shut, the continent of Auroria would die, an uninhabitable husk. It wasn't just war that had ravaged the continent, it was the draining of its magic. Aurangzeb had been a mage, one of the most powerful mages to ever tread the earth. Losing Kiprosa, watching the destruction of his race, allowing his sworn enemy to kill him. Yes, these things would wound him, they would make him ache. But compared with the prospect of cutting off the magic, the life force from an entire continent, they would be as dust in the wind. Aurangzeb had respected nothing more than the art of magic. He had devoted his life to studying it, to teaching others how to use it. To voluntarily cut it off at the source by sealing the door to the garden must have killed him inside. By the time Kyrios struck him down, his heart was long dead. Right now, having been away from Auroria so long, the hearts of many elves were likely dead as well. And they didn't even know it. The alliance negotiations between Enoir and the Weird Winds were a stunning success. For their part, most Nuians seemed quite curious about Enoir and his people. They assumed he was the Elven King. Overall, they seemed as curious to learn of Elven culture as they were eager to share their own. You'd already heard them buzzing with details about Marian Opal. The heart of local Nuian culture, the city had been named after the first Queen Marian. Ever since, the ruling families, Noriette, Weirdwind, Trieste, named their daughters Marian. All hoped it would fate their daughter to be the next local queen, empowering her family. It made for confusing family trees, but mirrored the elves' deep connection to history. The difference was that Nuians recorded the past, while elves memorized it.
Use carriages for faster travel between zones.
You broke it, but you will not escape! The goddess will have the king she wants!
A thrall of Tehuta, and a traitor to your own kind. You have no honor. Damn you to earth, never to see your goddess again.
Salt of the seas, forgive the weakness of my flesh. I drown in love for you.
Dream Hunter, are you alright?
I'll recover. Let's talk out of sight of this filth.
When you saw Deltakin's betrayal, it all made sense. Deltakin had been in charge of the tournament weapons and could have easily poisoned yours. Later, he had been the one to send you to White Arden, preventing you from talking to Enoia. Even the Sealstone battle could have been part of his plot. If the Crimson Army had been victorious, Enoia could have been blamed. The elves would have exiled him, and Deltakin could have abducted and sacrificed him sooner. When Deltakin shouted that the goddess loved the blood of kings, it finally hit you. Deltakin was the Grand Oblate of the Tehuta cult. You recalled Aranzeb's memories of Tehuta's palace, her servants, enchanted to share his face. She had been obsessed with him, had even loved him, had tried to seduce him. But he had loved another, and her all-consuming desires had never come to fruition. Except, perhaps, with her slaves. But how satisfying would a slave be, compared with a king? The Tehuta cult had many goals, but their Grand Oblate, Deltakin, may have had only one, Enoia. The one name all other elves knew, the single most powerful and influential elf on Nuia, the closest thing to a king the elves had had in hundreds of years, ever since Aranzeb's death. You'd imagine Deltakin using magic to carve Aranzeb's features onto Enoia's face. Tehuta would have been elated at the mere prospect. Deltakin's laughter was manic, but tinged with fear. Your entrance had broken his concentration. Now, He began his dread ritual again, whispering a spell and collecting a sample of Enoia's blood. Deltakin shouted that you should have no other gods but Dahuta, and no other kings but the sea. Enoia used his magic to weaken the wards around Deltakin's orb, allowing you to destroy it. Deltakin snarled a chant, filling the room with the roar of powerful magic. You kept fighting. Enoia channeled some of his power into your body. He was a legendary fighter, but few had ever seen him in battle. The Eocad were considered too elite to participate in the field of honor. Now, it was clear why. His magic was overwhelming, and it was only with his help you were able to bring Deltakin down. As Deltakin's last breath escaped him, his body bloated and went gray. Blue lines traced out his veins, and bile-colored algae slickened his skin. He looked as if he had drowned. It was a sign of his goddess, claiming him as one of her beloved. Dahuta had imbued Deltakin with power and altered his being to suit her needs. What else could be expected of the goddess of change? She had changed his true nature as the sea changes in a storm. You couldn't discern his age, or even if he was truly an elf. He was nothing now, a soggy husk that his goddess had no further use for. What kind of rewards must he have been promised to risk so much of himself? And all for naught. The magic unleashed during your battle was powerful enough to attract the rest of the Eocad. When they noticed Deltakin missing from their ranks, you pointed at the seeping corpse nearby. Much explaining followed.